Welcome back. In this chapter, we are diving into another important concept of Java or any programming language, that is conditional statements. Every meaningful program has to make decisions, and in Java, conditional statements help us define and control the flow of execution of the program. In this chapter, we'll explore different types of conditional statements that let our Java code respond dynamically based on certain conditions. We are going to have a look at the simple if statement, the if-else statement, the if-else if statement, defining branches using the switch statement, and a concise way to define conditions, that is using ternary operator. We'll learn how to define the syntax for these conditional statements and understand when and how to use them. By the end of this chapter, we will be able to write programs which behave dynamically based on a condition and start building out real world ready applications. Let's get into it, shall we? What are conditional statements in Java? Conditional statements in Java allow your program to make decisions and execute different blocks of code based on certain conditions. These statements enable branching of logic, that is, which logic of the code needs to be executed based on if a specific condition is true or false. This is essential for developing dynamic and responsive applications. Let's have a look at the first type of conditional statement, that is the if statement. This is the most basic form of a conditional statement in Java. It evaluates a Boolean expression, that is, it evaluates a condition to be true or false, and if the condition is true, the block of code existing inside the if block is executed. If the condition is false, the if block is totally skipped. In this example, int age is equal to 18. If age is greater than or equal to 18, then you are eligible to vote. If age would have been 15, this condition would have been false and this block of code would have not been executed, but since in this case it's 18, it's satisfying that condition. This if block gets executed and the system.out.println message is printed. Then we have the if else statement. This is a slight expansion of the if block. Here, to cater to the false condition, you have the else block. That is, if the condition is true, the if block is executed. If the condition is false, the else block is executed. In this case, age is defined to be 16, and if age is greater than 18, this is going to print you're eligible to vote, else it is going to print you're not eligible to vote. In this case, the age value is 16, that is, this condition stands false, and that's the reason this is going to be executed as a part of else code block. Then we have if, else if, and else. This is again an expansion on the if construct. This can be used when you have to check multiple conditions for a logic. In this case, if the first condition is met, the if block is called. If the second condition is met, then the else if block is called. Similarly, you can define multiple else if blocks based on different conditions, and if none of the condition is met, then we have the else block. In this example, we have score equal to 85. If score is greater than or equal to 90, that is A grade. Else if the score is greater than or equal to 80, that is B grade. Else if the score is greater than or equal to 70, that is C grade. If none of these conditions are met, that is, if the score is smaller than 70, then that is D grade. So this is how you're going to check multiple expressions using the if, else block. Let's have a look at the switch statement here. When you have multiple expressions to evaluate, you can also go with switch block. This is going to help you define a single expression, and then you can have multiple switch cases, and based on the expression, the corresponding switch case is executed. Here in this example, int day is equal to 3. Switch day, this is how you are going to evaluate that expression. So we have defined different cases here. So case 1, case 2, case 3. So here day is equal to 3, hence the case is equal to 3. It is going to evaluate to that switch block, and here it will print out Wednesday and it will break. We are using break here to break out of the switch block. Then we have the ternary operator, which is a shorthand for if else condition. This is going to help you define a condition in a single line. It can be used in decision making where the decisions themselves are pretty simple to evaluate. In this example, int age is equal to 20. We are evaluating this expression here. Age is greater than or equal to 18, and string eligibility. So if this condition is met to be true, then this block is executed, and if this condition is meant to be false, then this block is used. To differentiate, we have a question mark and a colon, and based on that it is going to print out the value of eligibility. We'll look at the practical implementation of these conditional statements in just a bit. To summarize, the if condition helps you execute a block of code if a condition is met to be true. The if else condition executes one block of code if it's true and executes the other block of code if the condition is false. Then we have if else. You can use this when you're dealing with multiple conditions, and accordingly you can evaluate to its code block. Similarly, we have switch statement, which can be used to compare a single expression with multiple cases. Then we have the ternary operator, which is a shorthand for if else condition. So you can use if statement when you're dealing with simple conditions. You can use if else statement when you're dealing with a true and a false condition. You can use if else if when you are dealing with multiple conditions, and then you can use switch when you have a single expression to be evaluated against the multiple and possible outcomes of that condition. And then we have the ternary, which is the most simplest form of if else condition. You can use it where it's much more simple to write. Conditional statements are one of the essential concepts in Java. Understanding these statements is gonna help you write more dynamic and more condition controlled Java code. Let's quickly go through the code example for it to discuss in practical implementation how all of these conditional statements work. So I've created a class for it for our chapter 9. Let's first go through the if statement. Let's simply define an integer and number and its value is 10. Now let's define a simple if condition block. So let's say if number is greater than 5, and I'm gonna open its curly braces, so it has its own code block. I'm just going to print out a simple print statement here that the number is greater than 5. Now if I save the program and run, you see you're getting the number is greater than 5. Now let's say if I change the value of number to, let's say 3, and I save, and you'll see nothing is gonna happen because this block of code is totally skipped because this condition is met to be false because the number is not greater than 5. So if I change it back to, let's say 8 and save the program, it should evaluate, this condition should evaluate to true, and that is how you're getting the number is greater than 5. That's about a simple if block. Now let's work on the if else statement. Let's follow the same logic here. Let's say if the number is greater than 5 else, and here in addition to this I'm going to write an else block. Let's give it a set of curly braces, and I'm going to simply write the other condition, that is the number is not less than, and here I'm going to write a simple inverse statement for this, the number is smaller than 5, and currently the value of number is 8. So let's see which condition. So the number is greater than 5, and let's say if I change this back to 4 and save and run, you see the number is smaller than 5. So based on the value of number, it is checking this condition. So if this is true, then this block is gonna execute, and if this condition is met to be false, then this block is gonna execute. And that is how the if else conditional statement work. Now let's quickly go through the if else condition. So first let's try to evaluate the number, that is the expression. So now this is if number is equal to 0. Similarly, we can write else if we can define a condition here like number is greater than 0 and that is it is going to check both the conditions. So and number is smaller than or equal to 5. Let's give it its own code block. And similarly, we can write another condition else if number is greater than 5 and number is smaller than 10. Now let's give it its code block. And finally, if none of the condition is met, let's just write an else block, and now we can write our statements here. Now currently the value of number is 4. So based on this, let's write a print statement. Here the number is between 1 and 5, so we are writing that. And in the next else if block, the number is between 6 and 10, so we are going to write that. And if none of the condition is met, then we can simply write the number is greater than 10. In this case, you see the number is 0, number is between 1 and 5, the number is between 6 and 10, and if none of the conditions are met, the number is definitely greater than 10. So that is why we are writing the print statement like this. Now let's save the program, and currently the value of number is 4. So it should lie between, the number is between 1 and 5. So we should get that as an output if we save. So we get that the number is between 1 and 5. Now let's quickly change the value of number to 14, and that should evaluate to the else block. The number is greater than 10. Now let's save, and the number is greater than 10. So it is working as expected here. Let me quickly change that to 4. Now let's work on the switch statement here. Now let's create another variable, int a day is equal to 3, and here now we can define switch block for this. The way we do that is we apply switch on the variable day, and then we open its code block. And now we can, and here we can define different cases. Let's say our first case is case 1. Let me add a tab here, and here under this we can write the system.out. and under this we can write the print statement as Monday, because the first day of week is Monday. And here we also need a break operation so that the control moves out of the switch block and the control goes back to the program. Similarly, we can define multiple cases, case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is going to print out the days accordingly. And if the value of day is not from all of these values, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say if the value of day is 6 or 7 or 8 or 10, it is not going to fit into any of these conditions. That is where the default case comes into picture. So if none of the conditions are met, it is going to execute the default block. So that is how you define a switch statement. For now, the int day is equal to 3, so it should technically print out Wednesday. Let's save the program and run, and you see Wednesday. So that is working as expected. So that is how switch block works. And now let's quickly discuss the ternary block. Here let's define another variable, int age equal to 20. Now what if I want to perform a condition check, checking if the age is greater than or equal to 18. So based on that, the user can either vote or not. So based on that, we can define the person as an adult or not. Here we can write a simple ternary statement. So this is the condition to be evaluated, and after question mark you have your first block of code, and after colon you have your second block of code. So if this condition is meant to be true, then the first block of code is executed. If this condition is meant to be false, then the second block of code is executed. In this case, the age is equal to 20. So technically the first block of code here, that is you are the adult, should be true. Let's save the program and let's print out. So you see it is working as expected. Let's change the age once again, and let's save and run. You are a minor. So because the age is 12, you're minor. So that is how your, let's change it back to 20 and save and run, and you are an adult again. So that is how you're going to, so that is about the code example. That is how you're going to use these conditional statements. That is how you're going to use these conditional statements in Java. Let's quickly go through some of the best practices and tips while you work with conditional statements to keep them efficient and readable and error-free. Keep your conditions simple. Complex and conditions which are overdoing a lot may confuse the program. A condition which is hard to read is also hard to maintain. So try keeping your conditions as simple as they can. Prefer else if conditions over multiple single if blocks. That is, if you're using multiple single if blocks to evaluate conditions, you can try using the if else condition blocks. So all of your logic sits inside the single conditional statement. Avoid deep nesting, that is placing if condition inside another if condition. You can do that, but overdoing it again may cause a lot of confusion. It's always better that your if condition returns the result to the main block as soon as it can. So try avoiding deep nesting of the multiple if blocks inside one another for a condition or for a value which is gonna evaluate to multiple different outcomes. It's always better to use a single switch statement so that you have a single condition defined and you can have multiple cases against it, and based on each case you can execute its corresponding code block. Always use braces even for simple condition statements, even for single line conditional statements. Always try using braces. This gives your code clarity and makes it more readable. When you're dealing with short conditions involving assignment of a value, you can definitely try using ternary because it's simple and single line conditional statements which can be used very easily. Now that you're getting comfortable with if checks, you can apply these if conditions on checking the status of an object or any other variable. So this is going to help you evaluate if the value of any variable or an object is null. And you can also simplify the Boolean expressions in your condition. You don't necessarily have to write if this condition is equal to true or if this condition is equal to false. Let's say the condition is true. You can simply write the name of the condition. In this case, let's say there is a variable called is active, a Boolean variable. It's going to have either true or false. So if you place the Boolean variable itself in a if condition, it is going to check if that is true, and if you place an exclamation mark in front of it, that is going to check if that value is false. So you don't have to write is active is equal to true or is active is equal to false. So that is how you simplify the Boolean expressions to keep your code more crisp and readable. And always make sure you have a default code block which executes in your switch statements, so that if none of the conditions are met, the default block executes no matter what. And as a final tip, clean conditions are equal to clean decisions, and they are equal to cleaner programs. So focus on clarity, focus on defining clear conditions so you don't clutter your Java program using these conditional statements unnecessarily all over the place. Keep your conditions crisp, simple, and easy to work with. Wrapping up this chapter, we explored the concept of conditional statements in Java. We understood different types of conditional statements. That is a simple if block, the if else blocks, the if else if else blocks, the switch statement, and the ternary statement. These conditional blocks are going to help us define flow of execution in a Java program. It is going to help your Java program make decisions dynamically based on the conditions. And now that we have learned how to control the direction of execution in a program, the next step would be understanding how to repeat certain block of code, how to repeat certain logic of code based on a condition. In the next chapter, we will be exploring the concept of looping statements in Java and how you can use them to write powerful and repetitive logic with minimal code. And that's about this chapter. Till I see you again in the next one. Cheers.